जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining. Today we are discussing verse number 20 of chapter number 2 from Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And in the verse number 19, the Krishna says to Arjuna, the soul can neither kill, means soul cannot kill anybody, nor is killed. So it is easy to understand that soul is not killed. It is indestructible. This has been discussed in details in the past. So soul is also not the killer, and what does that mean? So in the previous verse, means verse number 18, it is described that the body is perishable. So it is going to die on its own course, though Arjuna may not kill it. So the body and the soul, when they get separated at the time of death, that happens by the course of nature. The Maya or the nature of Krishna, which is working under the direction of Krishna, makes it happens. So in that sense, even if Arjuna is killing a person, he is only killing the body. He is not killing the soul. So the separation of the soul from the body happens due to the course of the nature. So now Krishna continues in verse number 20, further describing the nature of the soul. Chapter 2 verse 20. Na jayate mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyah ajo nitya sasvato yam purano na hanyate hanyamane sarire. So this verse is a very important verse, and this verse Krishna actually picks up. There is another verse similar to this. Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, and that verse is from the Katha Upanishad. So in the Katha Upanishad, a similar verse has been described, and Krishna is citing that same verse in Bhagavad Gita. So this indicates that Krishna is citing scriptures. So what is the importance of scriptures? It is really important to cite the references from scriptures. So we should not concoct anything from our mind, and Krishna is over here teaching example by his own example that one must follow Shastra and give references from Shastra. So this particular verse is there, similar kind of verse is there, except like one word change, and that is in Katha Upanishad. There is another Upanishad called as Katha Upanishad. So now let's go into the translation of this verse. So Prabhupada translates as, for the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. So in this verse, Krishna is using a very nice technique, and the technique is normally found in the Upanishads. So Krishna is now trying to explain in details about the soul using that technique. So what is that technique called as? It is called as na iti, or in short it is called as neti. This is a Upanishadic strategy. So when the philosophers or philosophical seekers, the Gyanis uses introspection to analyze something. For example, if they are trying to analyze who am I, and then they start with, am I this body? No, the body is made up of air. So am I this air? No, I am not this air. So not this. So they'll try to analyze the thing by negating the thing. Okay, this particular thing which I am trying to analyze is not this, it is not that, it is not like this. So by this process of philosophical negation, gradually one comes to affirmation. So by negation of the material, we gradually pave the way for the affirmation of the spiritual. So this is the process of philosophical introspection of about our nature. So we can take an example that if you have never eaten rasagulla in your life, so then there are two ways to describe about rasagulla. The first way is to talk directly about how it looks and then explain how it tastes, how the fragrance is, what is the dimension, etc. etc. So talking about rasagulla directly, that is one way of understanding. And the second way to explain is to first understand that what you already have eaten in the past, and then after understanding that what you have eaten in the past, what kind of sweets you have eaten in the past, then explain on the basis of your pre-existing knowledge. So somebody may say that explain the rasagulla as it is not like a dry sweet milk, it is not like a gulab jamun, it is not like a sandesh, it is not like a halwa, etc. etc. Then you come to a conclusion that what rasagulla is and how rasagulla and what rasagulla is not. So it is considered more effective since you are comparing against what you already have experienced in the past. Similarly, in this verse, Krishna is using the same Upanishadic techniques or strategy of na iti or neiti. So instead of telling the soul is this, soul is that, etc., etc., Krishna is telling Arjuna, soul is not this, soul is not that. In what relationship Krishna is trying to explain this? So Krishna is explaining this in relation to the body. So all the things that apply to the body do not apply to the soul. And since we don't have much understanding of the soul, but we have a very good understanding, also we have experience of the body. Therefore, Krishna is telling Arjuna in terms of the body and explaining about the soul. So how is that done in this verse? So Krishna is starting with the first word. So the first word is na jayate. So na jayate means since everything in the world, especially related to the body, we understand taking birth at some point in time. And we know that whatever living entity we see around us, they have taken birth at some point of time. So here Krishna says the soul is na jayate, means it does not take birth. So generally a question is raised when people do not have understanding about the characteristics of the soul. So they may ask this question, when did the soul come into existence? So this is a very valid question because in our experience, everything comes into existence in some point of time. So naturally this question can be raised about the soul too. That when did the soul come into existence? Hence, Krishna explains this to Arjuna and to all of us through Arjuna that the soul does not come into existence. It is always existing. And in this verse, Krishna is saying, na jayate means soul does not take birth. Then the next thing is mriyate, or means na mriyate basically. Means it will never die. And then va kadachin. So kadachin means at any time. Means it will never die, or it will never take birth. It will never die. Va kadachin means at any time, means past, present and future. So it will not change. It will always be the same. The body is changing, going through the 6 kinds of transformations. So what are those 6 kinds of transformations? We have discussed that earlier, but I'll repeat it. It takes birth, it grows and remains for some time. It reproduces, it dwindles. Dwindles means become old, and it dies. But for the soul, Krishna is saying, Nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuya. So these things again Krishna says that the soul is not subjected to any of these changes. Not in the past, Bhutva means no past, not in the past, Bhavita means not in the present, or Bhuya means not in the future. So everything in this world is subjective to time. So that's why this conception of time is given in the terms of past, present and future. So essentially the soul is ever existing. So this first two line indicates that the soul is eternal and it is always existing. It has not come into being, it does not come into being, and it is not becoming into being. So in the third line now Krishna is saying Ajo Nitya Sasvato Yam Purano. So let's see what is Aja. Aja means it is unborn. Then Nitya means it is eternal. Sasvata means it is always there. And Purano means it is the oldest thing, existing since time immemorial. So these are the characteristics of the soul given. So since Krishna has described the characteristics of the soul in the previous line, all of this, then Krishna is saying that na hanyate hanyamane sharire. So Krishna now says that the soul cannot be killed. Soul cannot be killed when the sarira or deha is killed. Therefore, Arjuna, get up and fight. Perform your duty. So this is the message of the same message actually Krishna is repeating many times, which he has repeated in the past. But let's see that why Krishna is repeating the same message again and again about the soul, because he has talked about the soul in the past. He has mentioned this point that soul is eternal and body is temporary in different ways. So did Krishna forget about what he spoke in the earlier verses? No. This repetition is necessary for all of us because we are so consumed in the bodily concept of life that I am this body and I am the Lord of everything that I survey. So even after hearing this message of Lord Krishna, we tend to operate on the bodily concept and we forget this basic principle that we are not this body. So theoretically, we may be understanding that we are not this body, but realizing this message and then acting on the platform of soul while doing our daily activities is completely at different level. So because we are so conditioned to the concept that we are this body, Krishna has to repeat this message again and again and again so that it gets into our consciousness after many such repetitions. And then finally we accept and actually gradually realize that yes, I am a spirit soul and I am not this body. So we need to remember that Krishna is doing this out of his love and compassion for all of us, so that we will get benefited and will act on the platform of the soul and then make our life perfect. So let's see what Srila Prabhupada has to talk about this verse in the purport of this verse. Qualitative oneness with the Lord. That's the first point Srila Prabhupada brings up. Qualitatively, the small atomic fragmental part of the Supreme Spirit is one with the Supreme. So qualitatively we are same as Lord Krishna. Supreme is Lord Krishna and we are part and parcel of Krishna. So qualitatively we are same. Example can be given that an ocean and a drop of ocean water. So ocean can be compared to Krishna and drop of ocean water is us. So qualitatively the drop of ocean water is same as the ocean water. So that is the comparison given here. He undergoes no changes like the body. Sometimes the soul is called the steady or kutastha. So his body, Krishna's body doesn't change. His body is Sachidananda. And we are also actually Sachidananda, but right now we are covered with this material consciousness. So we think in terms of body, but actually we are soul, same quality as, we have the same quality as Lord Krishna. Body goes through 6 kind of transformation. So we just described that earlier. The body is subject to 6 kind of transformation. It takes birth from the womb of the mother's body, remains for some time, grows, produces some effect, means byproducts, means children, gradually dwindles, means becomes old, and at last vanishes into oblivion. So the body is dead. Soul does not go through any transformation. The soul, however, does not go through any such changes. The soul is not born, but because he takes on the material body, the body takes its birth. So when the soul enters into the womb of the mother, then the body starts forming. The formation of the body starts in the womb of the mother, and then it starts growing. The soul does not take birth there. The soul does not die. Even after the death, the soul doesn't die. Anything which has birth also has death. So the body has birth, therefore the body has death. But soul doesn't have birth, so therefore the soul doesn't have death. Next, Prabhupada talks about characteristics of the soul. And because the soul has no birth, therefore he has no past, present or future. He is eternal, ever existing and primeval. That's it. That is, there is no trace in history of his combining into being. So there was no point in time in the past when the soul came into existence, and there will be no time in future will be the soul will disintegrate or vanish. It is eternal. It is going to be there. It is always there. So this concept of eternality is very difficult to understand because it is not in our present experience. In our present experience, everything comes into being and then it stays for some time and then it dwindles and it finally dies. But the soul, for the soul, we have to accept it, what is given in our scriptures. And we don't have any other way to verify too, actually. Under the impression of the body, we seek the history of the birth, etc. of the soul. Yeah, so this point we have naturally this question that when did the soul come into existence? Because everything we see around us comes into existence. So that's why we ask this question about soul. The soul does not at any time becomes old as the body does. Now, Prabhupada gives practical proof of that soul is eternal. The so-called old men. Now, some of us are getting old, but we are enthusiastic as we were young. But when we experience actually old age, the body starts, becoming slower, but the soul is ever young. It is eternal. So soul is experiencing something and the body is not cooperating. Therefore feels him to be the same spirit as he was in his childhood or youth. So this is a very important point, that when old people become old, the body doesn't support, but the soul, because soul is eternal, the spirit of that soul is same. So even in the old body. And that's why we see that, when people become old and when the body doesn't work, they get frustrated. And that's why we see sometimes people who in their old age are very angry and very frustrated because they want to do the things what the child or youth is doing, but their body is not supporting. And that brings in a great frustration. The changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul is ever young. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree nor anything material. The soul has no byproducts either. Right? The byproducts of the body, namely children, are also different individual soul, and owning to the body, they appear as children of the particular man. So our children, our relatives, they are just different souls having different bodies. Maybe they are born from us, but they are actually different souls. So we need to start seeing or visualizing things happening around us in relationship with the soul. The body develops because the soul's presence, but the soul has neither offshoots nor change. Therefore, the soul is free from 6 changes of the body. So soul doesn't go through all this transformation which the body goes through. Now, as we discussed earlier, that Krishna is citing from the Shastra. He is giving a reference from the Shastra. So this particular verse is there in Katha Upanishad. So in the Katha Upanishad 1 to 18, we also find a similar passage which reads, Na jayate mriyate va vipaschin, nayam kutaschin na babuva kaschit, ajo nitya sasvato yam purano, na hanyate hanyamane sharire. So it's pretty much similar verse. The meaning and the purport of this verse is same as in the Bhagavad Gita. But herein there is a verse, here in this verse there is one special word, vipaschit. So this is the vipaschit word is there. This means that, which means learned with knowledge. So people who are in knowledge, learned with knowledge, they see that the soul never dies, not takes birth. That is the meaning. Soul is Sachidananda. So this Sachidananda word is actually 3 words. Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat is eternal, Chit means knowledge, Ananda means bliss. So that is, in a way we can say that is the composition of the soul. For our understanding, we can understand in that way that the composition of the soul is Sachidananda. So the soul is full of knowledge or full always with consciousness, and that's a symptom actually. So it is full of knowledge and it's conscious. Therefore, consciousness is the symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart where he is situated. So this we discussed in the previous sessions, that soul is situated in the region of heart. One can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of consciousness. So if there is consciousness, that indicates there is a presence of soul. Wherever there is consciousness, there is soul. Now the analogy is given by Prabhupada here to explain analogy for understanding the presence of soul. Sometimes we do not find that the sun in the sky owing to clouds. So if the clouds are there, we can't see sun. Or for some other reasons. But the light of the sun is always there. And we are convinced that it is therefore a daytime. So in the morning hours we don't see sometimes sun, but we are seeing that the light is appearing. Or the sky is a little bit lighted. Similarly in the evening hours. And by seeing this, we see that the sun is there. So as soon as there is a little light in the sky, early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in the bodies, whether a man or animal, we can understand the presence of soul. So in the dog's body or the cat's body or insect's body, we see that we can observe this, that when the soul is present, they are moving around. So they are conscious. If we touch them, they will fly or they will move away. So there is a consciousness in those particular bodies. So similarly in the human body, when the consciousness is there, the person can feel it. But the soul has left, then there is no consciousness. Then whatever we do with the body, the soul is not going to respond because the soul has already left that particular body. Now Prabhupada explains there are different levels of consciousness. The consciousness of the soul is, however, different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all knowledgeable, past, present and future. So this is the difference between us and the Lord. The Lord is the Supreme Consciousness, and he doesn't change his body. So he is aware of all the past things, he is aware of the present, and he is aware of the future also. But the consciousness but we are only experiencing the present, and we don't know or don't remember about the past, and we don't know about the future because we are encaged or we are embodied soul. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna. So we understand about our constitution, who we are, and what is our real nature, all this by studying from a superior person, that is Krishna. But Krishna is not like the forgetful soul, so he is not like us. If so, Krishna's teaching of Bhagavad Gita would be useless. So that's why we are studying Bhagavad Gita, because he is superior to us. He is supreme consciousness. He knows past, present and future. So that's why we learn from him. When we are forgetful about the past, we know about the present, but we don't know anything about the future. So we get this knowledge about soul and who we are, what is our real nature, from Krishna. Now there Prabhupada was talking about two kinds of soul. There are two kinds of soul. Namely the minute particles soul, which is us. So we are called as Anu Atma. And super soul means Vibhu Atma. Super soul is Paramatma. And this Paramatma is actually sitting in the heart of all the living entities. This is also confirmed in the Katha Upanishad 1-20 in this way. So this verse tells that both the super soul Paramatma and the atomic soul Jivatma are situated on the same tree of the body within the heart of the living being. So soul is situated in the region of heart, as well as the Paramatma is actually next to us in our heart, in every living entity's heart, not in our heart only. It's there in dog's heart, it's there in cat's heart, it's there in human's heart. Every living entity, he is there. And only one who becomes free from all material desires. This is the requirement. One who becomes free from all material desires as well as lamentation can, by the grace of Supreme, understand the glories of the soul. So this is the requirement. So here we see that this particular bird, example of bird is given. So this particular bird is the soul, and next to that bird is the Paramatma. So they are sitting in the same body in the region of heart. And when we get qualified by becoming free from the material desires as well as lamentation. Hankering and lamentation. These are the words used in the later verses of Bhagavad Gita. Then by his grace we can understand the glories. Then we can understand the glories of the soul as well as the glories of the Paramatma. And then Prabhupada says the Krishna is source of Paramatma or super soul. So Krishna is the fountainhead, or is the supreme personality of Godhead, because from him this super soul also comes, who sits next to the soul and guides the soul. That is the role of Paramatma. Krishna is the fountainhead of the super soul also, as it will be disclosed in the following chapters. So later on, this point will be discussed, that Krishna, the source of super soul is Krishna. And Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is acting like a conditioned soul, like us. So he is playing a role like a normal living entity. Otherwise, Arjuna is a realized soul. But because Arjuna gets bewildered, or is acting like somebody who is conditioned, then Krishna can speak this message. So through Arjuna, then Krishna can give us the message. That's the reason Krishna covers Arjuna, and Arjuna is asking, he is going to ask many questions, and Krishna is going to reply those questions. And all the question answers or discussions between Krishna and Arjuna will be very, very helpful for us to gain knowledge. So Krishna is the fountainhead of the super soul also, as it will be disclosed in the following chapter, and Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. Therefore he requires to be enlightened by Krishna, or by his bona fide representative, the spiritual master. So Krishna and the bona fide representative, they are in the kind of same level, because the bona fide representative of Krishna, he actually represents Krishna. and he passes the message of Krishna as it is. He doesn't change what Krishna is saying. So that way, when we take shelter, when we hear from a bona fide spiritual master, then we also get benefited. We, as Arjuna, got benefited by hearing from Krishna. So whatever has been discussed is put in this format, in the slide format over here, and you can refer it. So with this, we'll stop here and continue with the future verses in next sessions. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Bol.